What's up? It's Marco, Sage of Soccer, and today we talk about the USMNT national team's 1-0 win over El Salvador. And this was a tightly contested game. The U.S. was looking like the dominant team. I don't think we were ever really in trouble. We weren't going to concede and lose this game. It was a must win or draw. If we would have lost, El Salvador would have advanced ahead of us. But getting that win was very tough today. Things changed when we had Ricardo Pepi came on. He had an instant impact with a goal. Very good performance today. Maybe he's feeling the pressure from Balogun. Maybe just trying to prove Berhalter wrong for leaving him off ahead of Jesus Ferreira, which still don't like that decision. I think it was right to start Josh Sargent, but still don't like leaving Pepi off the roster. But I think it was a good performance today, and a lot of guys made some statements, I think. And going through the team, tactics-wise first, I did like how we were set up in a 4-2-3-1. I think that today we did a little bit better defensively. I think having McKennie and Musah was a lot more solid. I'll get into how I feel like the team played offensively a bit later, but I think that was a lot more solid, and I think it proved that we can operate in that formation. I think Reyna as a 10 was a standout this game, making a lot of things happen. Definitely one of our top performers. And I think it was a formation I think suits this team a lot better. One thing that I didn't really like in the first half, I think part of the reason why this game was so sluggish is we kept trying to force through crosses this game. We had Daryl Dike up top, big target guy. You want to hit him with some crosses, but it really wasn't working out. And if that was our strategy, I think our personnel choices were a little bit weird. We had Alejandro Zendejas starting as an inverted right winger, which I like him starting there. I've been wanting us to play with an inverted right winger for a while. We just don't have any left footed attackers now. So it's good to see us do that. But with the system that we were playing, it really didn't make the most sense, especially considering how passive Sergino Dest was playing. And we kept trying to get those crosses into the box, but it really wasn't working. And that was contributing a lot to our sluggish first half, on top of just a lot of our players having poor performances today. But then something happened in the second half. We changed our style of play, and lo and behold, it actually worked. We started taking on players a lot more, which, you don't want to take on players too much, but when it's pretty clear you're not going to be doing that, it really hurts us. And especially when we're a team where we're the better guys, having our players be able to take players on the dribble, it helps us out a lot. We had Reyna really making an instant impact, taking on players for this dribbling. Yunus was starting to do it as well, and that really opened up that El Salvador defense. Eventually, Weston McKennie was able to find a really nice pass into Ricardo Pepi to open up the scoring. So I don't think we were lined up that well in the first half with the style of play we're playing. I think we did set Daryl Dike up for a little bit of trouble. It wasn't going to be the easiest game for him, but at the same time, if he's that limited of a player, we have to take note of that as well. But I did like the changes that we made in the second half. Bringing out Ricardo Pepi was an instant impact. And I think Hudson did a passable job today. I don't want him to keep this job long term. I think that he could be somebody for us, maybe in, like, let's say the 2030 cycle, if he gets a lot of good experience. I think that he has some potential as a manager. I just don't think he's ready for the job at the current moment. But I don't hate him as a manager. I just would not like to see him back with this team. On the individual player performances, and it's a very mixed bag. I don't think there's many real positive performances. From our starters, Reyna was our best player, in my opinion. Just able to make an impact a lot. And this is good after a poor performance against Granada, in my opinion, or at least by how poor you can play in a game you're winning 7-1. But he was making a lot of good on the ball moves. He was dribbling past defenders, making some good incisive passes, looking like a threat around the box, getting shots off. Was our most active player, and man, you could really feel that he was performing well today. Something that, like, with a player like Reyna, where you see like the edge that he brings. I think there's like a certain bit of him that he's not ever going to like drop below like a certain level of intensity. I say, like, he wasn't playing, like, he got benched for not trying his hardest. But when you're in like a real game competitive setting and he's locked in, like, you know that he's going to give you like a certain amount of something. So even when like a player like we weren't having our best performances, we're a bit sluggish after a game against Granada, two very hot games in a row can take a lot out of you. Girona was just able to bring the energy that entire performance, and you kind of like players like that. Now, it could be said that sometimes those guys aren't able to elevate themselves up with the rest of the team. Like, they just kind of like stay at their own level. I'm not saying that is Reyna, but I think that I did like his performance today. Was definitely one of our best players. Aside from that, I hesitate to label anybody as a real positive. I don't think there's any big negative performances either, but there wasn't too much great today. Matt Turner made a good save or two. didn't have too much to do. I don't think he was ever really pressed. I hope that he's 100% healthy. I think he just had a bruise when he's making a save. In defense, Ream and Robinson, that's solid today. Did a good job. Ream was making me a little bit nervous as early in the game. Like, we know he doesn't have too much speed, and they're trying to get him behind, but he settled into that pretty well later. Miles Robinson, I think that we did rush him back a little bit. You could see at times that he was still rusty, and I think I would prefer having Cameron Carter-Vickers and Chris Richards in the squad, especially considering we have the game against Mexico coming up in April, where it's probably going to be all Liga MX and MLS players in that squad. I would have had Robinson with that one. Again, like you mentioned, I think he's a little bit rusty, but it's good to see that his athleticism is still there, his defense is still there, and hopefully he can have a solid season and then maybe move abroad and really start to take his game to the next level. I think our fullbacks were one of the weaker performers today. Jedi Robinson, we know he's a solid player. He's our surefire starter at that left back position. But he's a player who, like, when a game's not going right, he's not going to take it over or anything. He had a couple of bad giveaways. His crosses weren't on target today. He has a couple of performances like that. But I think aside from like a couple of bad mistakes, he was pretty solid today, and he definitely deserves to still be our starter. Sergino Dest, I'm not as sure about because when you look at Dest, like he's not the best defender. He had one or two good moments. I think he wasn't too great today defensively. But moving forward, he was, I mentioned earlier, he was strangely passive. And I was really interested to see how he'd play in a game where we had like that inverted winger who'd be more in like the half space, which would give the width to Serginho Dest. And as an attacking player, you'd really like to see him take advantage of that. But he really didn't. He honestly didn't look his best until Zendejas went off. I think that Dest, he's looking like a guy who he seems like he wants to operate more in like the midfield, sort of like what a Philip Lahm was doing, how Man City's using like a Rico Lewis, just come inside as a player. But I feel like when you do that, you really have to build around Serginho Dest, and I'm not sure if he's good enough that I'd want to do that. And on top of that, you have him being a defensive liability at a lot of times. He's not playing much for Milan for a reason. And I'm pretty convinced that Joe Scally should be our starter at that right back position right now. On top of him actually playing in the Bundesliga, he's a lot better defensively. He's a good athlete. He's a bit more of a traditional right back, which I feel like suits this team a bit better and can get the best out of us. Like Dest, he certainly has a lot of talent, and I think he could start to really fulfill his potential if he gets just a good run of consistent playing time somewhere. I'd honestly like it if you went to a team that's not doing the best, because when Dest has played, he's always been on top teams, at least in his domestic leagues like Ajax, Barcelona, even now with Milan. Like he's never really been on a team that's like on the back foot. I think he might benefit from, let's say, joining a team in like a Premier League relegation battle or just somebody competing in mid-table. I think that might help him get a bit more grit defensively. Maybe we'll see how that would work out, but I think that would benefit Dest. And right now he's outside of my starting lineup. Then we have Musah and McKennie in the midfield, and I feel like Musah, solid game today. I think with McKennie alongside of him, he really is a good player in that 4-2-3-1. When he has a good defensive partner, I think he's solid enough defensively. I liked how he was able to take players on the dribble, good in possession, obviously, and I think he's a core player of the squad. I think he's a surefire starter for us at the moment, and so he needs to be involved with this team. Then Weston McKennie, he had a very good assist for Ricardo Pepi's goal, and he was a pretty constant set piece threat. But the more I'm watching McKennie these days, I'm starting to wonder if he's holding the team back a little bit. When you talk about on-ball ability, you have to be like a bit careful with the U.S. team, especially because a lot of times we kind of have to look for players who like just aren't capable of playing at any top league at all. And McKennie is capable, but we have like guys who come like like not Serginho, like a Christian Roldan, Sebastian Lletget, like come into this team and they're clearly not good enough. Their technical ability isn't even at the baseline where they can be competent players in the team. And McKennie is much better than them. But I think amongst players who like do have that good technical ability, he's like lacking. And I think that we should be looking to play a Yunus Musah over him once Tyler Adams returns. And I think that McKennie shouldn't be a starter for this team that much anymore. He obviously has some good parts to his game, but I think at the moment I'd be going with Adams and Musah alongside Gio as a 10 if we really want to start. Like in a must-win game, that's who I'd be going with right now. Then Luca De La Torre, I do want to mention him coming off the bench. I think that he is a really just such a spark plug player when he comes off the bench, and I think that's what I prefer him as. I don't think his defensive ability really is the best in this situation where he has more responsibility. I think that he could be fine in a 4-3-3, but I would rather have Gio Reyna as a 10 and have Musah and Anos behind him than put Luca De La Torre in a 4-3-3. But I think that him coming off the bench in like a role that he had today, where he just be a spark plug and really try to make something happen, I think he does that role really well because he's just so talented on the ball. And honestly, he does have a lot of grit, a lot more athleticism than he thought at the start of his U.S. career. But I wouldn't be starting him consistently. I've already went over Gio Reyna. I think he's just a great player. We need to keep him in the team. Alejandro Zendejas, I'm not too sold on him, to be completely honest. I think that if we want to call on a left-footed attacker again, I'd be trying out Kevin Paredes or maybe even a Caleb Wiley. I hope that he ends up playing left back because we need that position a lot more. But he's been pretty good for Atlanta this season. Then I don't know. I just feel like he makes a couple mistakes too many. He's not making too many incisive passes. I feel like he's kind of just like plays one touch too slow. I don't know. It's tough to say. I've had a pretty small sample size with him. I haven't watched too many Liga MX games with him, but I'm just not sure if he's really on the level of the rest of the team around him. And I would definitely try out Kevin Paredes in this role if we wanted to call in a left-footed attacker again, because I feel like Zendejas I'm not sure if he should be with this team right now. Christian Pulisic on that left wing, he had a pretty bad game today, especially by his standards. I'm not judging him too much because he did just come back from an injury. I'm just happy he got through this camp without getting hurt. And I think it was a bit of a mistake to play him against Grenada. I mean, well, he did get like a goal and like what 3 assists, but I think we should have saved him for this El Salvador game. We didn't learn anything by having him just tear up that Grenada team. But not the best performance today. His first touch was really bad. He had a lot of bad giveaways and really didn't make the impact that we know he can. Not the best performance today by him. And Daryl Dike up top, when he got on the ball, he had a couple of decent moments. Good job running at the defense. He won us a couple of good free kicks, but he really wasn't able to make an impact when he wasn't directly getting passed to. He's not somebody we can expect to drop into the midfield. He wasn't pressing that hard. He was doing a bit, but he's not like a Josh Sargent. And I don't know. I don't think he really did enough to say that he needs to be involved in this team anytime soon, or he needs to have any role outside of somebody who you bring on late in the game to try to disrupt the opposition. I mean, I don't think we really set him up in the best position, but if we are going to start, we're going to be playing like this. And I don't think that Daryl Dike played the best day, and I don't think that he should be a starter with this team based off this performance and just his overall skill set and what he brings to the team. So that's it with the starters. Couple of good performances, a couple of mixed, couple of bad ones as well, but I think there's a good amount to learn from this game. Off the bench, we had Ricardo Pepi, who had that instant impact, just coming on, getting that goal. Really good run, just composed finish. His hold-up play was good throughout the game. Probably could have scored another goal. Taylor Booth had a really good cross into him, but he wasn't able to make it happen. And I think that just very good game, and you have to wonder what happens if we bring him to the World Cup. Again, I think Josh Sargent should have been starting ahead of him, especially at the time, but um, Sargent ended up getting hurt, and I know that Pepi would have offered more than Hayes Ferreira did. Then Brenden Aaronson didn't get to impact the game too much. Luca De La Torre had a couple of good moments. Johnny Cardoso came on a bit at the end, and I don't even think he touched the ball. Taylor Booth was doing a lot. He was making a point to get a lot of crosses in. He had one really good one to Pepi that probably should have been a goal, but I don't think he played the best today. I think that he's still a good player who I like. I would honestly like to see him a little bit in the midfield. It's going to be tough to see him in the Nations League final. Maybe we have a couple of friendlies around that. He could be able to come in and make an impact. But I like Taylor Booth. He didn't have too much to do, and I think that he had a solid performance. And yeah, that's really it. I think that I like that we're experimenting with the 4-2-3-1. I think that's the formation that's going to be the best for us. I think that we've been playing with a lot more freedom without Berhalter. You can see our attackers, like being willing to try a bit, like, especially, like, to start the second half, us immediately taking players on the dribble. I feel like that was Hudson, like, kind of allowing the players to play with a bit more freedom. We see a lot more like switching, especially when Brenden Aaronson came on. Like he'll start to float to the middle of the field. You'll have Reyna come out wide. Pulisic will be drifting about. Reyna will drop in deep. Like there's a lot of good things going on, and there's reason to be positive. I'm excited for the Nations League final, and yeah, it's good for us to get there. A win's a win, and yeah, so all I got to talk about. See you.